All right, let's take a look at a recap for lesson one for HTML coding the web. So lesson one is the absolute basics. We're going to talk about the tags that exist on web pages. And I'm going to go ahead and open up a blank code.org project. And when we do these projects, we're going to go to new project, view all, and then a new web lab project is what we're looking for. So I'm going to go down here to web lab. It has the brackets on it. When you start a new project, it's going to start off with some pre-populated information in the middle. Now, I'll explain what each of these mean, but let me just first off come up here and rename this. And I'm just going to call this lesson one so that we have this document named. Feel free to do this along with me as well. If you're doing it for review, just listen, maybe take some notes. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the book over to the side so that I can show you both at the same time here. So let's take a look at the basics. So the first things first, HTML is a language of tags. And what that means is these little things right here, these little pointed angled brackets, those are tags. Those are what our HTML codes go inside. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is a coding language that allows us to do lots of different things on the web. We want to show what things look like. We want to organize things on the page. We want to link pages together, and all of that is done using those tags. So if we're looking at a bare bones, and I'm going to erase all of these here. If we're looking at a bare bones HTML document, the very first line is going to be this. This is called a doc type declaration. So it's not considered a normal tag. It's not even really part of the HTML tags that we call them. It's just a declaration at the beginning that tells you this is an HTML document coming up, okay, basically. All right, then we're going to create the HTML document itself. That's going to be with a pointed bracket and HTML. That is what's called an opening tag. Now, an HTML tag has both an opening and a closing tag. So whatever you open, if it's not one that's called an empty tag, whatever you open also has to be closed. HTML is a tag that needs to be closed. So I'm just going to enter down a few times and then type the closing tag, which is the bracket and then a slash and then HTML, just like this. Okay? So the HTML tag is the first official tag after the doc type declaration, and it's always the very last tag in the document. All right. You can also add what's called a language attribute in the HTML tag. So attributes are things that go inside of a tag. HTML can have what's called a language attribute. So to put an attribute, you spacebar one time, and then this attribute is called the language attribute, which is lang, and then you put an equals, and then a quotation mark, and then in this case, it would be what language is it? So for instance, ES would be Spanish, España, FR would be French, and English is EN, okay? And so this is what this is going to look like. We have our tag, and then we have a space bar, and we have the attribute, which is always going to be something equals something in quotation marks. Okay. All right. So that's the HTML tag with our language. The language is optional. You can put it in there or not, depending. Now, the visible part of your website is going to be in the body of the page, but there's also a top part of the web page. So that part's called the head. Okay. So there's that part. And then there's a body. Okay. So just think like a snowman, head, body. The head is information that we don't actually see in this open part of the web page. This open part is called the viewport. We can't see the stuff that's in the head. It is up here. So where you see this new web lab project, that is the title of this web page. So up here where it says head, we have certain things we can put in the head and certain things that only go in the body. So anything we want to display on the page in the viewport goes in the body. So for instance, a plain old heading, H1 is a large heading. And this would put this in the body, which then would display on my page. Okay. Now, we're going to add lots of things to the body later on, But let's take a look at what other things go in the head. In my classroom, we did an HTML man, and the HTML man has all of these parts. In the head section, we're going to add additional things. The first thing you always want to add is the title, which is the words that you want to appear in this little tab. So you're going to put your title tag, and then after the bracket, you're going to put your words in the tab, and then you're going to turn off / that title, like so. Okay? And again, most of our tags have opening and closing pairs. So we have the HTML opening and closing tag, we have the head opening and closing tag, we have the body opening and closing tag, we have the title opening and closing tag, and we have a heading. The doc type declaration doesn't have a closing tag, and there are also others. So now we're going to look at other tags that can go in there. So when we open code.org initially, it's going to have the doc type declaration. It's going to have an HTML opening and closing, a head opening and closing, and a body opening and closing. And it's going to have this link line. This link line connects to this style.css, which is a style sheet. You don't have to know what that means yet, but a style sheet's how we make it pretty. Now, I deleted that line, so I'm going to type it in here. The order of the things in the head doesn't really matter. So you can put the title first if you want. You can put the link first if you want. So I'm going to put the link. The link has 2 attributes. Remember, an attribute is something equals something in quotation marks. So the first attribute is the rel, which stands for relationship attribute. And these can be in any order too. The attributes don't go in a specific order. And the relationship is called style sheet. Okay, and then outside of that quotation mark, I'm going to space bar for my second attribute. And again, I could have put this other one first. It doesn't matter the order. This one is href, which stands for hyperlink reference. And if you're in code.org, when you see it pop up like that on the screen, you can just press the tab button on your keyboard, and it actually brings up your quotation marks and your equal sign. So actually, this one says, hey, you want me to link to one of these pages? Well, yes, I do actually. I want it to link to the style page. And so I'm going to put that there and then my closing bracket. Okay, so those are 2 things that go in the head section. The other thing that goes in the head section is what are called meta tags. So meta tags are extra information about a document. It's nothing that like you are really going to get when you're creating these, but they are necessary tags for your browser. They're called meta tags. And meta tags do not have closing tags, but they do have attributes. And we're going to use 2 different meta tags. So inside my first meta tag, I'm going to type in char set, which stands for character set. And then I'm going to press tab to get my equals. And the character set that we're going to use is UTF-8. Now, if you go to W3 Schools, that's kind of the Bible for HTML. If I go into W3 Schools and I type in char set, it's going to explain to me HTML encoding character sets. And you'll see immediately it comes up UTF-8. And then it talks about a couple of others that you can use. And if I go into the full HTML character set reference, I can learn even more about these character sets. So there's a whole bunch of different ones out there. UTF-8 is the one that HTML5 encourages web developers to use. So that's the one we're going to use. And then over here, you can see here's all the letters that come in UTF-8, even emojis, emoji smileys that I can do in UTF-8. And down here, it gives me all the codes to create these little emoji smiley faces. So for instance, these have special numbers, but to use it, I can click try it, for example. And then you'll see an example of the way this is set up. So this little guy here is this little code. And these little UTF codes actually don't go in any kind of brackets or anything. So I could put this smiley face on mine with my word hello. I'll just paste it in there. And then I get a little smiley face. And we'll learn about this in a later unit. But it's in part of the UTF character set. So just wanted you to understand what that character set references. Okay, the other meta tags that we're going to add in, and these go in the head section, so I need to make sure I'm continuing to put them in the head. This other meta tag has 2 attributes. So it's 2 different things that are something equals something in quotation marks. The first one is going to be name equals viewport. We're going to name this one. Because we're naming this one, it won't already be in there, so you'll have to type it in. And then we're going to put in content attribute, and that one pops up, so you can press tab. And this one's kind of a long one to remember. You can just use your HTML notes man. It's width equals device dash width. There's never space bars in these. Comma, there is a space after this comma, initial dash scale equals 1. Sometimes you'll see 1.0, and either of those are fine. So here is our basic setup here. I've got my doc type declaration, my closing and opening HTML, my closing and opening head and closing and opening body, whatever I want to display on the page in the viewport area, and then all the special items that go up in the head that you don't see on the page, except for, of course, the title, which are the words that you would see on the little tab up here at the top. And then, of course, this link is linked to this style CSS. And you can see here, you can just change some of their colors. Like, for instance, I could say, let's make the body black and let's make the paragraph white. Oh, I don't have any headings on here, so let's make the heading white because otherwise you can't see it. Color, colon, white, semicolon. There you go. So this style CSS will allow us to make it pretty. Again, not part of this lesson, just showing you that that's how they are linked together. It looks at this to make pretty parts to this index.html. All right, so that's essentially lesson 1. Be sure after you complete lesson 1 that you do project 1, which is that resume project that you're going to work on throughout the entire semester. All right, good luck.